South Africa is a place full of many unsolved puzzles. Why is our coal always getting wet? Why isn't Voto Passan in jail? Why did Anaconda play every Sunday? What the fuck, Timisani dog? Who keeps looting the funds? And what are they putting in the savannas? But today, we're going to finally get to the bottom of, dare I say, the most confusing, confounding, perplexing, discombobulating, and positively flummoxing puzzle that is literally on every single person's mind. Why is South African YouTube just makeup and story time? Obviously, I know that it is scientifically impossible. There is other stuff on YouTube. There's music videos, shopping hauls, pranks, news clips, and other stuff, I don't know. But it does actually appear that the content with the highest views on local YouTube usually fits into either the beauty or the storytime genre. The most obvious answer as to why this is the case is that it's clearly what people want to watch. And if it's what's mainstream, creators who would like to achieve fame, fortune, and success will cater to the masses. It's very classic supply and demand. Look at me knowing physics. Yet, just like with anything, the answer is never as simple as that. Or at least I won't let it be that simple. And I'm actually very curious as to why this is the case and how that's become so popular, why people like to watch that. And as usual, I would love to figure out why it makes so many people upset. There's a lot of rhetoric on Twitter that expresses frustration and apathy at the sort of homogeny of local content, and not just on our TV screens, which I guess is a world we can't control as much. But since YouTube is supposed to be this democratic space where sort of consumers decide the content, it's very interesting that the same complaints that we have for our traditional mainstream media, people have carried over to our counterculture media. A lot of people don't find this makeup or storytime content interesting or useful, and they also seem to feel like many South African creators either can't or won't do anything else. It seems that people are not content with the content. Personally, I've never felt this frustration because I feel like the easiest thing to do is just not watch things you don't want to watch and just look for other stuff. But I do think there is something we can all learn or gain by looking further at this issue. Initially, when I was going to do this video, I'd actually done a lot of research because I'd wanted to speak about what I was seeing as the fall of the beauty community and how the decline in interest of color cosmetics has sort of driven people to make all this other content that people don't really like, apparently. I don't think it's actually fair to say that South African YouTube is just makeup, when if you look really closely, the same way it's kind of happening internationally, you'll see that no one is actually making up makeup content anymore. Of course, I actually made a spreadsheet to figure this out, to do a real proper thorough investigation. And I wanted to find out if South African beauty gurus, the people who got their start on YouTube doing makeup content such as tutorials and product reviews and get ready with me's and stuff, we're still making that content. Is it actually true that a lot of South African YouTube is still just makeup? In order to do my research, I tried to keep my pool of YouTubers that I was looking at as wide and as diverse as possible, which obviously is a big task because there are a lot of people in the YouTube space. There are a lot of content creators. I went by trying to look at the most popular ones to some sort of mid-level ones to your more micro nano ones. And I also tried to keep it diverse in terms of the kind of people I was looking at. And wow, it was really hard to find white content creators. And I don't know if maybe that's just a reflection of the way I navigate the internet, or perhaps it goes to say something about South Africa in general. But I did get some really, really popular figures. So let me call these our macro influencers, like your Mihlali, K-Yoms, or Shana Isaacs. And then we've got your, let's call them micro for now. We'll call them your micro influencers or content creators. So Naledi Malela, Jessica Van Heeren, Cynthia Gwebu. And then we've got the nano creators like Nusa Jacobs, Foyi. And after looking at all of them and doing some thorough investigating, you can actually see that they're either posting less makeup and doing more vlog or talking style videos, or that if they are posting makeup, the makeup videos are not getting as much engagement and interaction as they used to, say, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, okay, let's pick a random name on the list like K Republic, who has 71,000 subscribers. Her most watched video in the past 3 months are on feminine hygiene with 52,000 views, 3,200 likes, and 226 comments, followed by a vlog about her birthday with 47,000 views, 2,700 likes, and 210 comments, and then a Sun City vlog with 37,000 views, 2,100 likes, and 151 comments. Now, by comparison, her makeup content, so tutorials, get ready with me's, product reviews, that kind of thing, her most recent makeup videos in the same month, so in the past 3 months, are averaging under 10,000 views with less than 100 comments. And remember, comparatively, we've already hit a 52,000 mark view on a feminine hygiene video, and what we got here? 47,000 views on a birthday vlog. Now let's look at someone who's a bit more popular. In fact, let's look at the most popular person on my list, Mihlali, and she's got 307,000 subscribers. Her most popular uploads in the past 6 months. Actually, notice she does not upload as much as everyone else does. And also in my research, I realized that she posts a lot more to Instagram. But even on Instagram, she's not posting that much makeup content either. But anyways, so she's got 307 subscribers, and her most popular uploads in the past 6 months are a sip or spill collab, and that is it's a big number, sorry. That's at 265,000 views, 15,000 likes, and 1,000 comments. Then there is a Cape Town vlog with 254,000 views, 16,000 likes, and 862 comments. And then a Game Reserve vlog with 233,000 views, 16,000 likes, and 1,200 comments. What did she do there? I might watch it. That's a lot. Those are the most comments I found on everything here in the past 6 months. I wonder what was happening. But then again, by comparison, her makeup videos in that same time period are at below 100,000 views for most of them, with about less than 10,000 likes and under 500 comments. And then let's go lower down on the list. We've got Sailor Dean, which is the second white woman I've ever found in South Africa after Jessica van Heerden. And she's got 17,000 subscribers. Her most popular videos in the past 3 months are a full face of Clarence makeup video, okay, with 6,000 views, 236 likes, and 18 comments, followed by a weekly vlog where she bought a camera with 3,000 views, 227 likes, and 30 comments. And then we've got another vlog posted a month ago with 2,700 views, 163 likes, and 13 comments. So obviously this isn't a perfect list, but I do think it's fair to say from the numbers I've got that either people are posting less makeup stuff or that in general audiences are not engaging with makeup content that much. I bring this all up because I think the decline of the beauty community is actually quite vital, or it's quite pertinent to our conversation right now about the state of South African YouTube. We can definitely ascribe the fall of the beauty community to things like the rise in skincare, that people want more natural looking makeup. People have more access to cosmetic procedures now, so there's less of a need to dramatically change your face. People more want to accentuate their features. So things like people being able to get filler and Botox, going for facials and like derma planning, and what else do people get? Plastic surgery is obviously a bit more acceptable now. Things like even getting eyelash extensions and microblading have sort of made a decrease for makeup. And of course there's also the big panoramic of it all where we're wearing masks and we're at home all the time. Then there's also the fact that I think there's a lot of consumer fatigue. There was just a constant unending stream of like new makeup brands, celebrity makeup brands, influencer makeup brands. There was a crazy new trend every week. There was like reverse contouring, the wavy eyebrows, there was graphic liner, there was so many shades of a highlighter. At some point they were just selling a shimmery blush but calling it highlighter, and things like that. There were constant drops and PR trips, and the PR boxes got really ridiculous. And of course I think the biggest detriment to the beauty community has been the unnecessary and completely manufactured drama and controversy. Anyways, I bring this all up to say that this makeup discussion is really important because makeup influencers or beauty gurus on YouTube are sort of what have invented the social media influencer as we know it today. Of course, they've always been influential people. Even on the internet, we've always had celebrities and authorities who worked in different niches. And we had bloggers who were people who spoke about products they liked and they showed us how to work things. But before the advent of like the age of Instagram and Twitter and all the other social media apps we've had since, when we talk about the creation of the social media influencer, someone who acts as a bridge between consumer and company, I really think we owe that to the beauty community. I mean, these were sort of the first people who learned how to leverage their relatability, likability, their opinions, and their knowledge into profit outside of traditional media. At least in the realm of YouTube, which also explains why for a very long time, YouTube, being a company, would put so much effort into boosting the content made by beauty creators. And it also explains that why when so many people wanted to enter the YouTube space and they wanted to achieve this unconventional, very new celebrity-like career that didn't really have a lot of much of a track record, they often began by pursuing makeup because that was sort of the first thing we saw people get really famous and wealthy from on YouTube. But today we're in a time where people are also incredibly hyper aware of how much a business authenticity and personality is. I think that in addition with the constant and very, very tiring influencer scandals, like we've had SpunCon, we've had people buying followers, we've had people making fake meet and greets, people monetize their apology videos. The curtain on the influencer industry has been pulled back. I don't think people trust them as much. I don't think people are quick to believe them, you know. What once felt like listening to your friend or someone who could be your friend talk about the things they're passionate about are now these really overproduced, super manufactured marketing activities that are just trying to emotionally manipulate you in order to sell eyeliner or a pair of shoes. And it's just interesting because this industry that had started out in opposition to all of the things we didn't like about traditional media just eventually became a further extension of traditional media. And I think this is also why we've seen the rise of platforms like TikTok, where people want things that are informal, off the cut, more low quality, more realistic. Like there is a greater demand for transparency and a return to reality. And we also need to remember that all media happens in phases. Like everything in the world goes through some sort of trend cycle. At one point on television, everything was a Western. And, you know, at some point, every young adult fiction novel was about supernatural creatures. And the same thing applies to YouTube. It's not immune to that either. I've been on YouTube for a long time and I've seen the phases. There was a point when most of YouTube was people doing parody videos and comedy stuff and skits and doing parodies of songs and that kind of thing. And then there was a point when everyone was into like conspiracy theories and like criminal investigation. There was a point where it was really big time for gaming and people watched a lot of gameplay. And even like I was around for like gaming machinima, where people used to like make movies and stuff with The Sims 2 and things like that. Such a great time on YouTube. I miss her. You know, and then there of course was makeup. I just think that makeup is a bit different from these other phases because it was the first time that people realized that we could monetize the internet, we could monetize YouTube, and there was big money to be made that. And then we also need to remember that YouTube at the end of the day is a faceless... YouTube... Sorry, my cat... Carton, I swear to God, please get out of here. I'm trying to make a video. Anyways, we need to remember that at the end of the day, YouTube is a faceless corporation. And it's going to boost the content that it views as having the most views and engagement because they have to sell ads, even though they're getting very brave with how long these ads are getting. But I will still never get premium. But at the end of the day, certain content is going to get boosted. Certain content is going to be more popular because certain content seems to yield greater financial rewards for YouTube. When people are complaining that YouTube is just makeup and just story time, it's not just like that in South Africa. It's like that all over the world. There's always one dominating, oh my God. There's always going to be one dominating sort of genre, and YouTube as a platform is going to boost that a lot. And then it's a sort of it's like a snake eating its own tail because YouTube's boosting it, then more people watch it. And then because more people are watching it, YouTube keeps boosting it. But I digress. Now we're in a new phase of YouTube where we're seeing the rise of things like commentary channels. We're seeing more video essays, and then we're also seeing a greater return to more informal types of content like vlogs and, of course, story times. It's not really the same as 10 years ago when it was just someone sitting in front of their laptop on their bedroom floor just sharing stuff for shits and giggles. People have HD cameras now. They are ring lights. They've got professional editing. It's brought to you by Raycon or Audible. There are ads placed every 5 minutes. It's very different now. Things are clearly for profit. These are things people are pursuing as a business. It's not a hobby. It's not someone goofing around anymore. And even when we look at the vlogs, they're so much further removed from reality than they ever were before. Like, we're often seeing them following, at least the most popular ones in my opinion, are often following the lives of wealthy or really famous people. They feature things like really expensive hotel stays and island getaways. It's someone borrowing an Aston Martin from your celebrity friend, or living in a mansion with your other internet famous friends, and then doing all of this dressed in Balenciaga and Supreme and being relatable but not really. And then on the other hand, the story times have gotten cartoonishly sensational. They feature like these really melodramatic thumbnails. You know, you see people with these over exaggerated facial expressions, and the titles and stuff on the thumbnail are trying to appeal to your outrage and shock. They've got these ridiculous clickbaity titles that are definitely meant to draw you in, and the creators are adding all these sound effects and laugh tracks and music to sort of highly dramatize these stories. And oftentimes, from what I've seen, you will click onto a storytime video with a very incendiary, very outrageous title and thumbnail, and the story you hear has nothing to do with that at all. In fact, let me talk about some of the most popular storytime titles I have seen in South Africa. So most of the titles are related to, I've made a short list. We've got sugar baby horror stories, getting cheated on; wild sexual encounters, getting cheated on; mischief and antics in nightclubs, bad sexual encounters, getting cheated on; the minefield that is heterosexual romance, fighting people at parties, getting cheated on; slaughtering a chicken on a first date, getting banned from a club; public indecency, getting cheated on; witchcraft, and getting cheated on. You guys okay? Obviously, of course, there are other kinds of story times. Some people have used the genre to share their experiences with their mental health. They talk about going through puberty. Sometimes they just share really funny stories and anecdotes from their lives. People talk about navigating life while queer. People talk about going through adult friendships. People offer career advice. They discuss finance, getting over debt. And I think all of that is really good. I don't think the story time as an entire genre is all bad. And I think it is very useful to have something on the internet where people can find interesting stories and look into other people's lives and find things that they can learn from themselves. And at the same time, I'm not saying that the getting stranded at 2 a.m. or catching your partner cheating or the worst date stories are bad either. Even if I don't think they're maybe educational or whatever, there is still entertainment value in all of these embarrassing stories, or finding out that you can relate to someone over something very silly that's happened in your life. Or sometimes it's nice to know that, some people have it as bad as you, or they've had it worse than you. And also in this time when we're so removed from other people, like, it is nice to gossip. It's nice to hear tea. It's nice to just sort of switch off your brain and just lose yourself in the silly little drama of someone's lives. But these story times are relying more and more at these very ridiculous levels on shock value and controversy. And at some time, it starts to feel like when a content creator's entire shtick is just posting story times, and they're posting a story time once or even twice a week, every single week, where they're living the life with the same plot of a really bad soap opera. At some point, you have to start considering whether any of this is real and whether any of this is productive or conducive, especially when you have to remember that these people are sharing these juicy, very personal details about their lives to get views and turn a profit. And I think that is a very valid reason for people to dislike this really kind of salacious, provocative content. And I also find it very concerning because I think a lot of people want to get into YouTube, and the most obvious thing is to look at what's most popular and what you can best earn a living from and what gets the most views. And if you're going to go on the internet and see that in South Africa, the only way to get popular on YouTube is to make these crazy storytime videos, you're either going to end up in a place where you're oversharing things, or you're going to go out of your way to lead an incredibly messy and dramatic and like salacious life in order to get views, or you're gonna probably start lying, and that's not good. Also, I do want to mention that some of these story times seem to be encouraging some very dangerous behavior, and a lot of these people have very young viewers. And it's okay to have adult conversations with adults, but I don't want people to mislead young people into thinking that like you are gonna get away consequence free, or you're only going to leave with a funny story if you decide to pull this kind of prank, or you decide to have sex in public, or you decide to do these things. There are very real, scary consequences that can happen when you're pursuing this kind of drama. You could end up in jail, you could end up in debt, you could end up like getting hurt or losing your life. And I just want us to be careful, because if you're gonna be going out of your way to strive to get the best story, you're gonna start doing some very desperate things. And the fact that this content is very popular is a bit worrying in that sense. But the messiness and the possibility for danger and fraud aside, I also want to look at why people respond so strongly to this content. And by this content, I'm not just specifically referring to the story time, but also we can look at some of the few makeup videos that are still being made, which I'm noticing that the ones that still get engagement are more like chit-chatty, like get ready with me's, or it's when people are talking about things going on in the week, or they're doing a life update while they do their makeup. So they're sort of incorporating makeup into more lifestyle content, as well as the other lifestyle content such as the vlogs, and very confusingly to me, the mukbangs, which are also usually story times while someone eats. But just generally all this content where people are talking, and the content that everyone is saying is dominating YouTube in this way. So George Bernard Shaw once said, or at least the take has quoted him as having said, "Only the wealthy are worth telling stories about." And I'm going to expand the wealthy to include famous or popular people, but often they're also wealthy. But I find it interesting because obviously our society has long had an obsession with telling stories about rich people. We're really obsessed with what they get up to, what they do, what they think, and you know, all the ongoings of their lives. And you can see it in the fact that shows like Dynasty, Gossip Girl, the entire Real Housewives franchise exists. We really like to know what rich people are doing and what they're up to. And I think there's this common idea that like the problems and the conflicts of rich people are a bit more interesting, perhaps because of how removed it is from most of our realities. And I think it's also interesting that in South Africa, a country where the majority of the people live below the poverty line, where a lot of people are middle to lower income, there is something to be said about the fact that like South Africans as a whole really enjoy proximity to wealth, no matter what the form. I think that part of the reason why vlogs are so popular is that as poor people, we really are just really invested in the lives of wealthy people, or we like to be near them. In fact, there's actually this one As Told by Kenya video where she speaks about the fact that so many lower to middle class people dedicate so much time on the internet to arguing about the authenticity of Saweetie's Birkin bags, or talking about how real wealthy people wouldn't wear head to toe Gucci, or that if I was rich, I wouldn't buy my girl this or that, or, you know, y'all a bunch of golders, etc. Like this clear obsession with the activities and the ongoings of rich people is just a very serious form of like broke boy escapism. Like we are retreating so much into wealthy people's lives. We are so invested in who has fake Birkins, who doesn't, who's become a millionaire, whose Ferrari is the best, how do you tell the difference between like this designer shoe and that, talking about how the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world aren't wearing Gucci belts, etc., etc. We're really hyper focused on these people because of how like sad our own realities are. And I think that's so poetically tragic. And we're in a point where we're either hyper focused on rich people because we really, really, really admire them, because I think for some of us we associate wealth with being better, with morality, with, I don't know, just being more deserving of God's love, or we completely detest people of their wealth because often and truly, their wealth has come at the cost of our own. And in an interview with High Snobiety about our society's obsession with billionaires, founder of the Financial Psychology Institute, Brad Klontz, and I'm going to quote, found that the same people who associate negative traits to wealthy people also believe that wealth would change their lives for the better. The end result gives us the same psychological fascination with rich people as with the popular kids in school. We love to hate them, but are also desperate to be them. It turns out that the more closely we relate to their stories, the stronger we dislike them. And I think this dislike also relates into why influencers and online creators are often the subject of very strong negative feelings. I think people really want to be them, but they also hate them for what they represent, because what they represent is stuff that you don't have. And it's also important to add here that the majority of influencers, or at least what people's first association is when they hear influencer, is often women, which often means that some of the criticism, which I think is unfair, some criticism against influencers isn't fair, has its roots in misogyny, and that's why some people have such strong negative reactions. And then in South Africa, this gets a bit more complex, because also the majority of the people in this business are women, and also the majority of those women are Black women. And there's an added layer of misogyny. I think later on in that article, Clance does add that we often envy wealthy people, and one of the reasons why we envy wealthy people is because we feel like they're not deserving of it. So in South Africa, in a country that really, really hates Black women, you can see why a lot of people use their contempt for the influencer industry to disguise the fact that they hate Black women. And I think they don't like the idea that a lot of Black women have made a career out of being attractive, out of being likable, out of being able to party. Oh my God, 1 second. Yeah, these Black women have made a career out of just being themselves, out of being attractive Black women. And because they hate Black women, they kind of associate that with hating influencing. And they often also think that social media is this shameful, promiscuous, whorish, get-rich-quick scam. And they don't feel like any of these women are deserving of the money and acclaim they receive. There are valid criticisms of influencers. I'm definitely in support of properly critiquing people doing harmful stuff. I just don't like when people are using these critiques to veil what is clearly misogyny or misogynoir. And when I was doing some polling on Instagram, I'd been asking a lot of people about their feelings with influencers. And I think there's definitely a lot to criticize influencers for the fact that they lie. They clearly do things as a cash grab. They endorse products they don't use. They don't do their research about the companies they support. They claim to stand for one thing, like being sustainable, but then they're getting drops from Cotton On and fast fashion brands. They feel like their platform enables them to share harmful opinions or to treat people anyway. They feel like their fame has awarded them the idea that they are better than other people, they are more than other people, and those are valid things we can critique them on. There's also a really good Tiffany Ferguson video that speaks to this exactly, about how when influencers become very wealthy, they lose their relatability and their sort of grip on tidy reality, and their content becomes, at best, cringy, and at worst, kind of harmful. I'm looking at you, Jake and Logan Paul. So a lot of the complaints and frustration about our local YouTube sphere also has to do with the fact that only certain kinds of people get popular, and that only people who look, act, and live a certain way get to enjoy fame and success. And of course, as with all media, there is... Oh my God, go away. Go away! Of course, as with all media... Is he even in frame? I must look like a crazy person fighting with my cat. But anyways, as with all media, obviously there's a level of privilege and desirability that plays into this. Obviously, the closer you are to white, thin, able-bodied, cisgendered, and conventionally attractive, the better your chances are of achieving fame, especially in the sphere of social media and celebrity. So we're not really going to get into that. I think that's been discussed ad nauseum, and I think everyone is kind of clued up to that part of it. However, I do think part of why it seems that some people seem to get away with producing repetitive or derivative content, why some people manage to get popular replicating other videos when it seems that they are more deserving creators who actually make new and original stuff, actually has to do with the fact that a lot of social media and a lot of what makes social media influencing is about creating a cult of personality and how these inform the parasocial relationships that influencers build with people. Cult of personality usually refers to when political leaders will galvanize mass media, propaganda, and very, very careful PR techniques to make a certain political figure appear perfect and only deserving of praise and worship. You know, they make this person seem so righteous and so good in every single way. There's someone who can do no wrong, and that there's someone you should really aspire to, and someone you should devote so much admiration and dedication, and most of all, loyalty to. So this doesn't only happen with like American presidents or dictators, but when celebrities and social media influencers are building up their personas or their online personas, they can often create this very idealistic image through a lot of these same techniques to appear perfect, to appear super likable, aspirational, and most importantly, more special than other people. And the more dangerous side to cult of personalities is, of course, that you can end up with things like really brutal dictatorships and weird quasi-fascist regimes, or you end up in situations where people are defending and protecting abusers and bigots, and you also end up in a place where someone who has committed as many crimes as Jeffree Star still gets to be Jeffree Star on the internet and receive no real consequences for their very, 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 very terrible actions. And now, the relationship that influencers and audience share is a parasocial one, which is where one person expends time, energy, and interest towards another person who oftentimes doesn't know that they exist. So if you are a fan of an influencer, you dedicate your time to engaging with their stuff, you follow them, you buy their merch, you take their recommendations, and meanwhile they don't know who you are. But for you, like as the audience or the consumer, you will come to think of this person as your peer or your friend, or someone who maybe if you met them in real life could be your friend. And this is also what makes you more willing to buy the things they recommend or take their opinions at face value, and also do stuff to boost their content and to promote them and help them achieve fame and success. And now in the local context, I think that when you look at the most popular influencers, our big like top macro influencers, you can see that they've actually all done a very good job of building a very strong parasocial relationship with their followers, which is also what has led to them having such loyal and really, really engaged followers. And I think that when you look at the likes of like Mitlali, even Nadia Yafta and like Jessica Van Heerden, and I think I just named everyone on that one Cosmo cover, but that's besides the point. You can see that they've all done a really great job of connecting to their audiences. You can see that people really feel like they're so likable, they're so charming, they're someone I would really like to hang out with in real life. She's a girl's girl. Oh my god, she thinks just like me. I would do that too. She's so real, she's so different, etc., etc. And considering that we're living in a time with less and less human interaction, or we're supposed to be having less and less human interaction, or even just the fact that our lives are increasingly stressful and that we're all in a constant state of panic and we're constantly at work and we have very little time to rest and stuff, these parasocial relationships are a really great source of refuge for a lot of people, and they're becoming more and more important for everyone every day. And I think that as more people start to feel very lonely, like especially during like deep in quarantine, like when you are by yourself all the time, like you really do start to look at these people you're watching on the internet as sort of a person you can turn to, a form of escapism, someone you can rely on. And there's real big emotional value in that. Like I don't think you should ever underestimate the fact that like those kind of relationships are so integral and so strong and so meaningful for a lot of people. I want to add that when we're criticizing these same influencers for being boring or unoriginal or uninventive, that we can't discount the fact that it actually is, it takes talent, it takes skill, and it takes a certain kind of person to be able to build that kind of emotional connection with someone they will probably never ever meet. Like you, not just anyone can get on the internet and make people feel so loyal. Not just anyone can get strangers to buy products just on their say-so. So as much as we might criticize that for you personally, you don't feel like the content is that interesting, or you don't feel like they've done anything new, you feel like that makeup tutorial was an exact replica of something that Jackie Aina did, or that when they're telling a story time, it's the same story you've heard 5 times over. Don't forget that for them to get popular and to still produce what we're viewing as unoriginal, like that still took a lot of work, and that is still worth some value. Lastly, the most important thing we need to remember when we're asking why are storytime videos so popular: controversy sells, okay? Plain and simple. Drama and conflict appeal to our most basic emotions. It fulfills our social needs for gossip and interaction and entertainment, and it's also a form of bonding. You know, you can really connect with people when you're talking about other people, when you're invested in someone else's life. It's a great way to bond with other people. And it's a great distraction, which as I've said before, like a lot of us really need in these trying times. And also at the end of the day, and then also the other thing, at the end of the day, as a viewer watching a story time, as much as you're hearing about some of the messiest shit ever, as much as you're hearing about the most scandalous and salacious and the juiciest gossip and stuff ever, at the end of the day, it's more enjoyable because you're really removed from that. Like, yeah, you're hearing the story about someone getting dumped aside the road, and it's mostly entertaining because it's not happening to you. You're really removed. And that's part of why people enjoy this. Like, a lot of us lead boring lives, and it's nice for 10 minutes in a day to, like, just get completely wrapped up in something, go, woo, damn, girl, and then you return to stuff like normal, and you are completely unaffected. Like, nothing in your life has changed dramatically. You haven't lost a friend. You didn't crash a car. You didn't break up with someone. You didn't get stranded in Dubai. Like, you just had a fun time, and now you move on with your life. And I think as well, there's actually a lot we can gain at looking at the state of these story times. I'm frankly a little bit concerned about why the content about being cheated on or being caught cheating, or all these sister wives stories and just all these terrible tales of infidelity and just disrespect in heterosexual relationships, like, that content seems to get the highest numbers, and I'm very concerned about why that is. Like, I think that for any of you who do psychology or something, there's some really powerful dissertations you could probably write about the state of South African cishet women in their relationships and why that's going on and why that's such a bonding point for so many of them. Like, why are there so many friendships being built over like this shared pain and embarrassment of being cheated on? So there's definitely so much we can gain from this stuff, even if it's not something you personally relate to. Like, there's a lot you could learn about how people are viewing dating, how people are navigating their home lives, what the new dynamics of friendship between adults are. So I just want to say that, like, don't necessarily look at this content as like base or crass. Like, think about it in a broader context. Like, change your perspective on it. It's not all completely bad, but it's also not all completely good. You know how I feel about absolutism. So hopefully that's cast a bit of a light on why this content exists and why it seems so overwhelmingly popular and just so ubiquitous and so present, and why people maybe hate or love it so much, and maybe what we as other people could gain for this. And of course, there are probably bigger things going on that I'm not even aware of, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions as to why this content exists, why it's so popular, why people hate or love it so much. And like I said before, there's probably more I don't know about it because it's not really stuff I personally engage with. But in doing my research, I feel like there is a lot we can learn about media literacy by looking at this. And I know it's also very easy to say, and I'm guilty of saying that, like, if you don't like this kind of content, go look for the content you want. You know, if you don't like makeup, you don't want to see mukbangs, you want to see video essays, you want to see DIYs, you want to see that. Like, you know, it's very easy to say do the work, but unfortunately, it is very true that the content available in South Africa is overwhelmingly in the makeup and storytime genre, and it is really hard. And while on one hand, I definitely think that South Africans are kind of lazy when it comes to finding the content that they say that they want, it sometimes feel like people would rather put down other creators and they would rather complain about the lack of content diversity than actually take the time to do the research, ask around, training your YouTube algorithm to your likes and your interests, because that is something you can do and you should do, and it's something that takes time. Like, instead of doing all of that, people would rather get on Twitter and complain. But at the same time, still, even with the best detective skills, even with the best keyword research, even if you ask every single person in South Africa, like, do you have a YouTube? Do you know someone makes YouTube? Do you know someone makes a YouTube outside of this? You're still gonna probably struggle to find the things outside of this makeup and storytime lens. Not only because, as I said before, the very popular stuff or the stuff that people read as popular gets boosted more than other content, but I imagine that a lot of people who are trying to get into YouTube and they're making stuff outside of this content probably get demotivated very easily, or they're very discouraged because they feel like people aren't going to engage, they feel like people aren't going to be interested, so they don't want to make it. Or if they are making it, perhaps they can't dedicate enough time and effort to it, so they can't consistently post, which is a big thing in getting people to watch you, I think. And because they're not able to make money from their alternative content YouTube, so they have to do their jobs, they've got to do their schoolwork, so they can't post as much. And then of course you end up in a place where there is just less and less of that content, or just it is a bit of a Herculean task to find this content. Like, it's taken me months to be able to like get my algorithm to show me videos that have like less than 300 views, or to show me channels with under 1,000 subscribers. But I did get there, but it's not easy. And I'm someone who's got the time also to dedicate myself to researching and looking, but not everyone has that. Like, I'm sure there are people who are earnestly prepared to look for the content, but like they don't have the time or the aptitude to do it. And that is a struggle. But I do implore you to do the best that you can and ask around. And in my Instagramming poll, a lot of people offered a lot of really interesting recommendations. I got recommendations about channels that were about finance, one about the life of this one lesbian girl. I got ones about DIYs, got ones about science, got ones about entrepreneurship, got ones about literature and things like that. And but you'll tell me if anyone is interested in knowing some of those channels. Maybe I'll find a way to put it together for everyone. And then also, if you're still watching, maybe leave a comment with some really interesting YouTube channels you like and you follow, and then people can find them, and we can address this problem a little bit by bit. And also, like, I think don't be bleak about it. Like, from my discussions with everyone on Instagram yesterday, it does seem like more and more we're in a time where like consumers are very savvy and audiences are very savvy, and people are aware of the fact that like just because you're seeing mostly one kind of content doesn't mean that's all there is. And a lot of people do understand that like you just have to take the time to look for it. And I think more and more people are willing to put the time and the effort to discover new stuff, to give new channels a chance, to really support smaller creators. And at the end of the day, we need to remember that the digital space and YouTube in South Africa is still really small. So it's not always going to be like this. The phases are going to change. People will rise, people will fall. I think we're going to enter a greater sense of democratization in the media space and everything. So like, I don't think our conversations about this should be so doom and gloom. I think just do what you can where you can, and like hope for the best, because I think there is still better coming. I know so many interesting young people working on stuff, getting ready to push stuff that like I think is so worth sharing and so valuable to like our greater digital space. And like I'm very hopeful about these things. I don't see why other people shouldn't be, because I'm like the biggest pessimist ever. So